All right. Happy Monday. Hope you guys are doing well. Appreciate y'all hopping on. Thank you.
Like magic.
My wonderful assistant. Hope you had a good Monday. Lots of cool things happening. We're going to run down tonight here on the Q&A over here on YouTube and X. And then we also have people over here on TikTok as well. There's a potential acquisition of TikTok by Microsoft. Apparently, that is the conversation that's being had. We will see what ends up shaking out there, but I think that'd be very interesting. Makes a lot of sense, with the way things are structured, that an American-based company would acquire TikTok itself. I'm trying the lights here. Let's see if this is any better for. No. How about that? There we go. That's a little softer. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, what they're acquired for. If Microsoft were to roll that underneath their portfolio, I'm sure that they would get a substantial bump in valuation. I'm sure there's speculation on the stock market probably tomorrow on that news. We will see. We did have a big move down in NVIDIA this morning with some of the news that came out around deep something. It's supposed to be a less intense infrastructure required for this AI that's been launched out of China. We'll see, if that actually lives up to the hype, or if Trump says no go. You have to use OpenAI or an American-based AI here in the U.S. Policy is going to drive that, right? So depending on who uses what, put taxes on things. I think Trump is going to do whatever he can to drive the U.S. economy forward and foster innovation here of technology, AI in particular, along with blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and the like. So we'll see. I think he'll, if it does become prevalent, or it looks like it's going to surmount OpenAI in any way, or Google's initiatives, I do think that they will likely, stymie that and put things around it here in the U.S. that require or push people in the U.S. to use the options that we have here versus a international or foreign option, which I think is good. I think you should foster the consumption and use of things here domestically. I'm hoping that the tariffs, if they're implemented correctly, will drive manufacturing of certain aspects and items back here to the U.S. We saw a big shortfall on that when COVID and all that shook out. So yeah, I'm excited for the next 5-10 years of growth. I think we're going to have a lot of that here in the U.S. and markets are going to prosper because of it. A lot of GDP going to be printed, and I think we're going to move into a period of prosperity. I don't know if you guys have ever read The Fourth Turning. I would challenge you to go check that book out if you haven't ever read that book. It talks about socioeconomic cycles and how that tends to coincide with changes in the monetary system. Find it very interesting. And we're at a fourth turning moment. We have been since the early 2000s, where there should be some type of crisis that happens. That tends to be a war. Hopefully it's not that. I know that we want to move past, the kind of archaic stuff that we used to do in the past and move towards something else. So I still think there will be some event that drives as a catalyst that pushes things into a time of galvanized prosperity across, potentially even the world, with some of these technologies moving in. Maybe there needs to be some type of enemy that everybody is fighting against, or something that galvanizes people to come together and work together toward a new mission. So, I don't know what that's going to be. You could speculate on a lot of different things, but I am excited for that because it does look like that's going to happen here, potentially here in 2025. If you got the reverse carry trade unwinds, that's going to be a global issue, and we'll see, what shakes out on the other side of it. If we do get adoption of digital assets at scale, AI, and a lot of these other technologies, I think that it could shore the gap, that's going to cause in markets with the GDP and huge downturn as people sell off, their positions in order to repay those debts. So with that, we'll go ahead and get into it. Just like to talk about global macroeconomics. It's something we discuss every single Saturday and Monday there in the Mastermind. If you guys want to go check that out, the code in the Mastermind to get a free month is Beyond Broke, all capitalized, just like it sounds. The number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar, or the abbreviation for month. Get you 1 free month there in the social membership or Carbon 1. Check it out. See if it's something you like. If it's not, no skin off your nose. You can cancel before the month's over. But I will say this. I think price appreciation for XRP is on the imminent horizon here. We are starting to see a rotation from Bitcoin into the alts. And as that escalates, when XRP gets to $10, we're going to lock the Mastermind down. We're going to raise prices 10x. We're going to be very careful about who we allow into that group on the other side of price appreciation. So you do lock in, even if you are on your free month, when that happens, you lock in your pricing, whether that's at the Carbon 1 or the social, and you stay at the pricing that we currently have set, even on the other side of price appreciation. You're grandfathered in at those rates if you do want to move up tiers on the other side of price appreciation as well. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into it. We'll start off over here on TikTok. Zaf V says, you think XRP is a fad? No, I think XRP is like Microsoft or Google. I think Bitcoin is a fad. If I was going to pick one as a fad, really at this point, Bitcoin's also not a fad. It's been around 15 years. It might end up being the world's largest rug pull at some point. We'll see if that ends up being the case. Luna was around for 2 or 3 years before they rugged everybody on that. I don't think crypto's a fad at all. I do think that meme coins and some other things, NFTs were a fad for a period of time. There were other things that have come and gone, but there have been a few things that have stood the test of time. XRP was the second ever digital asset or cryptocurrency that was ever created. It was XNS at the origination. There was 100 billion, 80 billion of those were gifted to Ripple. They were then rebranded Ripples. And then in 2014, when the IMF released their white paper that had the exchange rate peg listed in it, abbreviation XRP, shortly after that, Ripple did change they rebranded the token to XRP. So it's been that since 2014, a little over 10 years now. We're coming up on XRP's 13th birthday this year on June 2nd. So definitely not a fad. It's been around a long time, and I think we'll have a very bright future in comparison to many other networks and protocols and tokens. We have Matty B over here on YouTube. He says, my man, hey brother, can you explain why the use of XRP as settlement for banks would drive price appreciation? Absolutely. So the reason price would escalate is volume over the network. It's not necessarily issued assets. You could issue a bunch of assets on the XRPL, but if those assets aren't moving through XRP to be settled, then the price would stay the same. So it's payment volume over the network. There's a large amount of infrastructure and payments that already move on a daily basis through SWIFT and other networks, FedNow, FedWire, domestic and international. Those payments, if they were to be settled with a digital asset real time, in order to be able to reduce fees and remove the need for Nostro Vostro accounts or the trust for counterparties, it makes a lot of sense that they would utilize the XRPL and XRP to do that, especially when the other counterparty doesn't want to receive your stablecoin in which you may be making payment. So privatized stablecoins here in the US make it even more likely that XRP will be adopted at scale versus a CBDC. Now that Trump has signed an executive order that has outlawed a CBDC here in the US, I think that that was extremely bullish for XRP. I don't think people really understand how bullish for XRP that was, because counterparties aren't going to want everybody else's stablecoin. There's too much counterparty risk with that. Even Ripple stablecoin, obviously, people want to hold RLUSD or real USD and get the potential 5% returns for holding that asset. They're Uphold and a few other parties, but that's because you trust Ripple, right? You believe that their backing of that token is legitimate and that they do have the treasuries or the cash equivalents that they are required to in order to be able to back those deposits and issue that stablecoin. Other banks you may not be so sure of. There's a lot of banks right now that have huge unrealized losses. There's a lot of shady things that have gone on in the past. And so if you were concerned about somebody else's legitimacy, you wouldn't necessarily want to accept their stablecoin, or you might want to hold somebody else's because there's other benefits that you would like to get. I think that stablecoins will be a lot like credit cards. You'll rack up points. You'll get certain perks if you're holding certain stablecoins, whether that's PayPal's, Amazon's, Google's, Meta's, Twitter's, or your banks, right? I think that you'll be incentivized to hold a certain amount of liquidity in different places and be able to generate a yield for doing so, and also get perks and points, like I said. So anyway, the settlement volume, the transaction of swapping one issued asset for another, and that settling through XRP and the DEX that's built into the network will drive huge demand for XRP and sustained demand for XRP, causing the price to appreciate even with a high supply. I think people are going to have a really hard time rationalizing the market cap that XRP gets to. He says also, can you explain the concept of banks and institutions needing or wanting to use XRP for liquidity? What makes XRP so advantageous for using or useful during liquidity crisis? It's agnostic, and it's not issued by a centralized counterparty, so it's trustless. Anything that starts with an X is non-denominational. Basically, it's not issued by a specific counterparty. So like XAU is the marker for gold. And there's a few other ones as well. Most commodities start with an X. XRP, there's no counterparty risk to that. There's no other centralized institution that's issuing it. There may be people that are managing that capital, and maybe a lender of last resort like Ripple is, but they don't have domain or control over XRP itself. They can't freeze it. They can't claw it back. It can be used as intended by whoever's holding it or sending the payments. And it settles real time. So that's the main benefit. You can send millions of dollars for a penny or less in seconds. So ODL, like on-demand liquidity, like Ripple's product, in a crisis, most people have gone to, Uncle Warren or the U.S. government or the Fed for backing or liquidity. And when you're backed into a corner where they could start doing QE again. I think you might see that come Wednesday, quantitative easing, which is where they're going to issue more of the M2 money supply and push that out to the public. They're going to need some type of liquidity provision, and at this point, you'd start to see hyperinflation if they continue to print currency at the rate that they have been and push it into the market. The only other lever that they currently have is interest rates. They can bring those down and make it easier for people to borrow money that already exists, and the banks, ease their lending standards. We're starting to see that, and that is the anticipation that Wednesday this week, the FOMC will come out and lower interest rates and continue to squeeze the reverse carry trade. If the U.S. does decide to do that, it's going to be because they're in between a rock and a hard place. We're at a point where jobs numbers are starting to, job losses are starting to tick up. Inflation is starting to tick up. And if they can't print more money, the only other option they have to save things here in the U.S. or do better for our economy is to lower interest rates. But that could potentially cause a global panic to repay that reverse carry trade. So they got to tread very lightly. It wouldn't surprise me if they held rates until there was, a real problem. We'll see, what Jerome comes out with. Trump has already stated that inflation is too high and interest rates are too high and they need to come down. So if he has anything to say about it, which I don't know if he does or not, we'll see come Wednesday. But I think it's likely, and I think that's what you started to see today. I think the DeepSeek narrative is false. I think that they just needed to put something out as a narrative for NVIDIA starting to sell off to hide the fact that the reverse carry trade is starting to unwind after Japan raised their interest rates last week on Thursday. So anyway, I'm excited. Well, I shouldn't say I'm excited for that. That's going to cause a lot of people to lose a lot of money. Those that are positioned in the right digital assets, I think, are going to make a really large sum of return in a very short period of time. Hopefully that answers your question. So we have The unwinder of the Japanese carry trade is feeling extra bullish. It's not bullish. It's very bearish for traditional markets and treasuries, but super bullish for XRP in particular. Big G, he says, hey, Jake, do you have any thoughts on XCN? A lot of people asking about this. I do have some thoughts. Also, from the UK, if you have over $50,000 threshold in XRP, do your services apply to UK residents? Looking forward to connecting with you in the near future. Yes, sir. It's very late for you there, and I appreciate you being up this early or late, however you want to look at it, to watch the live. So XCN's interesting. It's Onyx token. Is it actually issued by JP Morgan? I can't find a definitive answer on that. If it is bullish on that token, you've already seen a pretty significant ride, like 1,700%, something crazy, over the last couple months here. So happy for the people that were holding it and the price appreciation that they received up to this point. I do think if it is JP Morgan's token for their infrastructure, that it will be used. They are the world's largest bank. They hold half the world's silver. Pretty significant, right? So they're interoperable with the XRPL through Axelr and the EVM sidechain. We actually talked to Axelr today about some of the stuff that they're working on. Pretty cool to see, that they are really allowing for multi-chain liquidity across all networks. The amount of people or amount of protocols that they've already connected is pretty staggering. And to see them continue to push the envelope and continue to add people and protocols and tokens to the infrastructure is really cool. So bullish on that ecosystem, as well as if XCN again is actually issued by JP Morgan, I think that it's a good deal. And we definitely do work with people there in the UK. We do require that your assets are held in a corporation or a trust in order to partner with Digital Wealth Partners or Digital Family Office. Most of the time for UK residents, we see a Nevis LLC set up, or it could be in Portugal, could be in Jordan. Portugal tends to be the trust side of things, and it tends to be after assets have appreciated a little bit. You got to be leery of how much time you spend in the UK. If you do want your assets to be taxed in a separate jurisdiction, anything under the crown, they're very particular about that stuff. So, and it depends, if you want to continue to live there in the UK, it might be best for you to set something up there. We do have a couple partners, Saks Global, that can help you set up Swiss bank accounts or stuff in Dubai or in other jurisdictions, if that's something you're interested in. If you do want more information on that, you can just email info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and we will connect you with people that we have over there in the region. 589 viewers on YouTube. Very cool. Have to shout it out. Hey, Jake, this is Jay. He says, Japan's fiscal year ends in April. Very interesting. Could this be what Yoshitaka Kitao means by Japan banks using XRP by 2025? Their fiscal year rather than their Gregorian calendar. It's quite possible that is the case, and I did not know that, and I appreciate you sharing that information. Over here on TikTok, just so that I'm not missing you guys, appreciate you. DeepSeek, I guess, is the name. That's my fault. It says, it's a good thing for AI. US will catch up. So much less power needed. I've talked about this before. This is kind of a good segue into this, but I do think that Bitcoin's infrastructure is pretty strategic. It's a global decentralized infrastructure for GPU and compute. And if you wanted a distributed way to be able to process that amount of power and compute for a global AI, I think it makes a lot of sense for that to be repurposed as that. I don't know when that'll happen. It's likely on the other side of quantum computers, being viable. And if you had the right quantum computer and it had enough qubits, you could mine the rest of the Bitcoin in a week, all 21 million of them. And then at that point, there would be no monetary incentive to continue to verify the network. All of the Bitcoin would just be locked. They would issue it on Lightning Network or wrap it on other protocols, and then you could still transact it. There still may be value there. Obviously, there'd be a finite supply, so supply and demand would still drive price appreciation. But I think that that's a probable outcome to the infrastructure of Bitcoin over time. I really don't think it's going to last till 2140, and they mine the last little bit of Bitcoin. I think it's highly likely that a quantum computer will come along that can just run through the rest of it in a very short period of time and mine the rest of it. Now that we're at we got 19 million something, there's only 1 million something left of the Bitcoin to be mined over that period of time. And that may have even been Satoshi's vision. We'll see if he ever resurfaces. So really good point though. Excited about DeepSeek, and it's going to be, if you guys haven't ever read The Future is Faster Than You Think, I talked about it on Bridger Pennington's podcast last week. If you guys haven't checked that out, I would encourage you to do so. Really good conversation with him over there at Fund Launch. Congratulations to him and his baby that he had maybe even that evening after we got off the podcast. Cheers to you, brother. But anyway, we talked about, the future is faster than you think, and the convergence of all of the progressive technologies that are coming together at once that are going to cause Moore's curve or Moore's law to go exponential. We've, had a pretty significant uptick in efficiency over the last 20 years with the progression in technology, but I really do think we're about to move exponentially faster. It's going to be very difficult for people to keep up with the progression in technology. You're going to see whole industries spin up over 2 or 3 years and then get completely eradicated by a new technology that comes out. So similar to this deal here, if AI has this amount of power that's required, and then something comes out that requires 1,000th of the amount of power required on the other, people are going to move to the more economic efficient tool, right? And that progress is just going to continue, and it's just going to become exponentially greater as you have the convergence of 3D printing and AI and blockchain, nanotechnology, biotechnology, genomics. There's a ton of stuff right now that's all converging together that's going to be just epic over the next 10 years and the rest of our lifetimes. We've got Natalia, 25. Probably butchered that, I'm sorry. They say I'm Australian and I have moved my personal crypto into a trust. Very good. I'm in the process of moving my superannuation to SMSF. Very good. Can DWP also manage the super trust once price appreciates? We don't have a trustee over there in Australia, but we can definitely find one if that's something you're interested in. We can find a partner over there. We have one here domestic in the U.S. that provides trustee services. I don't know that they would manage an Australian trust, but they might be able to. The only concern I would have there is just the time difference. If you wanted to execute a transaction and your distribution trustee was half the world away, 12 hours different, might be a little difficult at times. If it's noon for you and they're asleep, it'd be hard to get a transaction done. But yeah, it's definitely something we can look at, and I can task my team with finding the appropriate counterparties over there, and we can look at it. Would love to work with you at DWP and help you manage the assets and earn returns and allow you to borrow against them there inside institutional custody at Anchorage. And for those that don't know, if you are working or want to work with Digital Wealth Partners, which is the wealth management arm of Digital Ascension Group, you can go check that out at digitalwealthpartners.net. We provide institutional grade custody for all of our clients and their digital assets. It's insured, bankruptcy remote, segregated, silo. Your funds are never commingled with anybody else. You are a signer on your account. You can add your spouse as a signer on your account. You can set up beneficiaries to your account. You get access to exclusive institutional opportunities when it comes to ways to be able to generate returns on your assets, along with ways to be able to borrow against them without the scariness of DeFi protocols. The liquidation risk is far lower. Interest rates are very fair. We actually just had another partner come online to be able to provide liquidity against XRP today. So now that's 4 lenders that we have the capability to work with. We were the first people to ever get a loan done with Maple Finance against XRP there at Anchorage, which was super cool. I think we have $3 million worth of loans against XRP at this point inside institutional custody, a product that's never been created before. Super excited to be able to provide that to our clients. One of the prerequisite there is that you do have to have your assets in an entity. So if you haven't set up an LLC, and that's something that you want to be interested in or are interested in, I would highly recommend that you go check out our post on Twitter. Talks about all the benefits. Have a little ebook there that you guys can download about the benefits of moving your assets into an LLC. And if you do want to work with us, we do provide that service. It's only $3,000, but for you guys tonight, if you want to go check it out, you can get 50% off. So $1,500 there at digitalfamilyoffice.io. If you use the code 50, like 50 OFF, just like off, DAG, like Digital Ascension Group, LLC. So that's 50 off, DAG, LLC, all capitalized. Gets you the LLC, so EIN, Articles of Organization, Certificate of Good Standing, BOIR if you need it, registered agent there in Wyoming, video on how to set up a bank account, the SOP on how to move your assets into the LLC the correct way, and an operating agreement that is templatized specific for a holding company that makes investments and has a strategic investment in digital assets. Again, if you want to go work with an attorney for that, it's about $3,000 all in. We do it for you guys with that code 50 off, DAG, LLC. Get you all of that for $1,500, and you're in position, ready to go to be able to work with Digital Wealth Partners, or to be able to mitigate taxes and have yourself set up for price appreciation. Most people ask, like, how much do you need? I would say, anywhere north of $80,000 in digital assets is a really good time to start looking at that. M. Leba 92 says, hey Jake, a lot of ETC maxis have been mentioning this whole thing about XRP having the original 32,000 blocks missing on the ledger. Yes, they have. What's that about? And does that have any effect on anything? So it does. I think it's very interesting that the origin, the Genesis block is missing, and that those 32,000 blocks are not viewable. I think that there's some highly sensitive information about where things were and how they were moved and who was involved in those transactions that the government or Ripple or other parties may not want the public to be aware of, because I think it would make it much more obvious that XRP is going to be used by the banks, and that BTC at one point was the same price as XRP. We'll see. I think it's going to happen again. So with that, it's just more bullish for me. Bitcoin maxis want to point to that and point to it as a point of contention or deception or non-disclosure. They're about full transparency and libertarianism and da-da-da-da-da. Look, I've worked in business long enough to know that when something is hidden, there's a reason for it. And there's something going on there, right? It's kind of like the SEC lawsuit. You can either run from it or you can look at it as a sign. So Tesla was sued by the SEC. Amazon was sued by the SEC. To me, it looks like a rite of passage for the government to come in and make sure all your stuff is up to snuff before they roll you in and use you at scale and push you even higher as a systemically important piece of our economy. So I think that was just the colonoscopy for Ripple before they're rolled into the government here and potentially even the world to be able to provide the financial infrastructure that it becomes the backbone for all of the enterprise and large scale payments for institutions. So anyway, I think that's bullish. I think there's something to be hidden there, and that's why it's been removed. And I think if we could see that, it would be extremely apparent where XRP is headed. We got a super chat here. It's SBF. Sam Bankman. He says, hey, Jake, can a ETP like 21 shares convert to an ETF after regulations? Yeah, so an exchange traded product or an exchange traded fund. An exchange traded fund is an exchange traded product. You can have a spot ETF and you can have a couple different types of ETFs. An ETP, there is an ETP in Europe for XRP as well. And it could definitely be converted to an ETF. It just depends on which direction they want to go and why they want to pivot that way. I don't know the details on why you would or wouldn't want to do that. I kind of have a surface level understanding of all that stuff. We are looking at, potentially doing something in that capacity through Digital Wealth Partners. We'll see if that ends up being a thing. But yeah, definitely want to learn more about it. And it is possible because an exchange traded fund is an exchange traded product. Go ahead and grab a couple more super chats over here, and then we'll run some down here on TikTok for you guys. From Rick and Hyde, Bullbook, thank you. They say, if I bought most of my crypto using a personal checking account and then established my LLC in Wyoming with a linked business checking account, is there a problem when it comes to taxes? No. Yeah. So the way that we help people move their assets into the LLC is you would use it as the capital contribution, and you use the wallet address as the capital contribution. So you don't have to go buy another ledger or send a transaction. You just use the wallet they're currently sitting in as the capital contribution on the page. It's an addendum at the end of the operating agreement. And once that's in there, you get that notarized, or you can send it to a new wallet, however you want to do it. Those transactions, either one will suffice as the capital contribution to the LLC, which you've exchanged for the equity. And as long as it's a single member LLC, you have no tax consequences. And in most states, you have spousal rights, and you can make your spouse a manager on the LLC if you would like to. Off the Grid says Silver, XRP, XLM, Stronghold, good start. Yeah, I like all those. I will say on the silver, I've had a couple conversations with that here recently, and I've talked about this in the past. Silver's not my I think it go to $100. That's my prediction on silver. The normal ratio that silver has been against gold, so the gold to silver ratio has been 1 to 40. For if you look at the mean over history over the last couple hundred years, biblically it's 14 to 1. There have been times when it's overshot that 40 to 1 and then reversed to the mean. You saw that happen in the 1980s when it moved to $50. Silver is really the only thing that's still not back at the all-time high. That is because of the Hunt brothers and the short squeeze on silver that happened back then and the price manipulation. However, I do think that it is undervalued in comparison to what it's currently being used for and where the markets are. And I do think that 40 to 1, if gold got to 4,000, then $100 silver makes a lot of sense. I think it's more of a store of value than an investment. I like it for an emergency fund. Gold and silver, I think, make for a fantastic emergency fund. You can go to your local coin shop and pick stuff up. I do like the touch and feel of a silver coin or a gold coin. It's cool to hold something like that in your hand, a gold eagle or a silver eagle. But yeah, if you're here for ROI, I don't think silver is the best option. It is God's money, gold and silver, God's money, which is great. But again, if you're here for ROI, I think it's in the digital assets you mentioned there over the silver. Here we go. We got Storm Striker. Cool name. What's your opinion on XCN and any cryptos you think is good for connecting crypto payments through payment services like ACH? Hyperledger is going to be a lot of what retail payments move over in the future. Hyperledger BOSU is what the majority of retail or merchant service people or enterprises that we've had conversations with, that's what they're using. Which uses XLM as its settlement token. XCN is apparently, again, we'll find out if it's JP Morgan's token or not for their infrastructure. Onyx there. Axelr, super bullish there. XRP, I don't own anything but XRP. And you can call me an XRP maxi. That's fine. I'm here for ROI. And to make my investments, I normally look at three things, just so people are clear on this. And this is also kind of how you should think through things on the other side of price appreciation. You got to make your wealth in one thing. So I look at wealth like a tree. The trunk grows big and tall, and then you diversify. And that's the leaves on the tree later on. Okay. But normally when you're looking at an investment, you want three things. One, ROI, real ROI. So better than inflation. You want a real return. So if it's real estate inflation is 12%, you want the real estate to appreciate 15 or 18%, right? It needs to be in a good part of the country where people are moving to. There's a lot to real estate. I don't claim to be a guru there. I have really smart people in my corner that have work in multifamily, commercial, raw land, whatever you want, residential. We got it all. But I lean on their 20, 30 years of experience per person when making those decisions. But the first thing, again, is ROI, better than inflation, real returns. The second thing is cash flow. XRP has no cash flow. It's going to get the ROI. And now we've created ways to be able to get cash flow with XRP with the returns and what we've built at Digital Wealth Partners. So safe, secure ways to be able to generate cash on whatever your asset is. And then the last thing is the ability to borrow against it or a line of credit. Okay. HELOC, again, real estate is kind of the poster child for all three of these things. When you're looking at different types of investments, businesses do the same thing. If you're working in M&A and you're buying a boring business and it's generating cash flow, it's got good EBITDA, you're able to service the debt for whatever you use to purchase the business with, whether that's an SBA loan or an owner finance or whatever amount you put down to purchase it. If you raise capital from other investors, there's a lot of ways to go about it. But those two assets are kind of the poster child for those three things I just mentioned there. And I've done we've created the other two for XRP inside institutional custody with Digital Wealth Partners, because those are two things that I really value and wanted from the asset, even, before and after the price appreciation, the real ROI that you're going to get on it. So hopefully that's valuable for you guys. I know that, a lot of people are in crypto and they want to see price appreciation, and that's great. But whatever you do when you sell, one, think about the tax implications there. And two, what are you going to do with that money to continue to multiply it, hedge, and keep it and manage it over time, and not just blow through it. Don't buy a ton of liabilities like most lottery winners do, or athletes that get large contracts. Please, and don't miser it either. You don't want to just hold it in the savings account. You need to put it to work somehow and work with people that know how to do that. Not financial advice. Let's see here. This person, DWB, says, in my opinion, Ripple will never give the escrow up to the U.S. stockpile. That would undermine the entire global play for cross-border settlement. Foreign banks will shy away from using it if the U.S. dominates. It wouldn't matter. The U.S., it's not like SWIFT. You can't sanction somebody else on the XRPL. Even if you controlled the majority of the supply, you can't freeze it. You can't claw it back. It's decentralized enough at this point that it's not going to be an issue. I don't think it'll be the U.S. government. I think that the U.S. government and the Fed probably already have an allocation. Ripple went and talked to the Fed in 2014 with Greg Kidd. He was one of the original employees at Ripple. If you want to go check him out, he's kind of like Midas. Seems like everything that guy touches turns to gold. He hadn't really made many bad bets. But anyway, if the U.S. government ended up with the escrow, that allows them to remain in somewhat control, right? And if the U.S. was going to allow something else to be adopted, even if it was a level playing field, they would still want a pretty equitable interest in it. And I think that would give them that piece. It could also go to the IMF if the IMF is meant to be the lender of last resort and the SDR, special drawing right, ends up being the thing, right? That was the whole Bancor mentality from 1944 at Bretton Woods with John Maynard Keynes. That's the proposition that he put forth. And the U.S. just happened to have all the gold at the time and was the world's largest creditor nation. And we forced everybody's hand there and made them peg it to the dollar and gold after we backed the dollar with the gold. So I don't know. We'll see. But it makes a lot of sense to me if the U.S. was going to allow this to happen. They would want a big piece of it, and the escrow would allow them to maintain at least some supremacy or control in that process. I do think that XRP is definitely going to be part of the stockpile. Where that XRP comes from, still up in the air. Let's see. Scroll on down here, make sure I don't miss any of these super chats. Thank you, Kira. She says, hey, Jake, loving the Mastermind. Thanks for all you do. Greatest of all time. Thank you for that. Yeah, super excited about all the fantastic new people that we have there in the group. Again, if you guys would like to check it out, we love the culture there. I do lives every Saturday and Monday. We have other people that come in and speak about things when it comes to real estate, private equity, different offerings that they have to be able to generate yield. We do run private deals there in the group. We've got a deal on a very familiar company for most people here. I can't talk about publicly. That's going to close this week. There in the group. So if you want to go check that out and learn more about those things, again, just a free month there in the group is Mastermind. It's at mastermind.beyondbroke.com. And the code is beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar or month. It gets you a free month there in Carbon One or the social membership. And we do have a couple events coming up. We've got one up in Fort Smith, Arkansas, here on the 2nd. Have about 45 people. Me and Mickle will be there at that event to kind of chat with people about things, meet and greet, shake hands, kiss babies, have a good time. Should be pretty good. I'm excited. Kevin always puts on a really good spread there. It's at his steakhouse there in Fort Smith. So thank you, Kevin, for putting that on and allowing us to participate in your space and host a really good event there for our group. We'll likely have another one up in Oklahoma City in the near future. If you want more details on that, you can join the Mastermind. Any level, doesn't matter. We allow people to participate in the in real life events that we put on there for the group. And then Carbon 2 has some separate groups, separate meetups as well. Should have Graham from Archex here on the podcast in the very near future. Got a couple really cool people lined up to interview in the very near future, having conversations. And Bridger Pennington was just, kind of the first one this year to kick it off. I'm going to try to continue to put out really good content with other really interesting people that are doing cool stuff. And I hope you guys, continue to subscribe, like. I don't ever say that enough on here. If you do get value from this, please share it with somebody else. And like I said, we'll continue to pump out cool stuff if people are willing to watch it. So up next, we have Hunter. He says, how do you see XLM and HBAR moving once XRP takes off? Is XLM somewhat a competitor to XRP? So they want it to look that way. The U.S. has antitrust laws. They put those in place back in the 1930s, early 30s. They broke up U.S. oil and U.S. steel into a bunch of different corporations. They don't want people to be a monopoly. So if you didn't want to look like a monopoly, you would have, one of the co-founders break off and start something very similar that looked like a competitor, but was actually after a completely different market segment. So XLM, is peer-to-peer payments. It's a front-end merchant solution. You've already seen, multiple peer-to-peer layer 2s built on that. So with Velo and Stronghold, Stronghold is a competitor to Stripe or other payment processors or merchant processors. Velo is a peer-to-peer lending solution or stock purchase between, low value stock positions. Both super bullish projects, by the way. I would encourage people to go check them out and look at them. We do have a few videos here on the channel about both of those projects that are built on Hyperledger. But XLM, I think there's potentially a lot of price appreciation there. My long-term price prediction for XLM is $999.99 because you need 4 decimal places to the left of the decimal or to the right of the decimal if you're looking at it to be able to facilitate micropayments. And that's how many decimal places are in the code. So that's why my prediction for it is right at $1,000 over the long term for XLM if it's mass adopted at scale the way that I think it will be. HBAR is interesting. HBAR is a bit different. So Hashgraph is not even a blockchain. It's actually a bit more secure than blockchain. It's ideal for managing sensitive information. So I think most people's digital identity that they use at the airport or for your state or country, your passport, I think all those things will probably end up on Hedera. And there'll be a lot of DApps for Web3 that are developed there. You see a huge number of very credible enterprises on their council. I think they're going to open up more spots this year. We talked to William Deff, who is their business development guy, at Consensus last year, and he was talking to us about some of the other big players that are going to be announced in the near future. At that point, they had 37 of the 39 seats filled, and I'm pretty sure they probably already have, all 39 of those council members filled, and that's why they're adding seats this year in 2025. So super bullish on that network, super bullish on the token. Price prediction, I had a few people over here on TikTok ask. I have no clue, to be honest with you. The fees are fixed on that network. It's going to be supply and demand driven. Hedera's here in Dallas with me for their headquarters, Mance and his partner. So, does it get to 3 digits, 4 digits? Highly probable. If it's a layer 1 network that the majority of Web3 dApps are built on top of, and it provides security for the majority of digital identity and transfer, it's going to be integrated with Google and its wallet, Apple and its wallet. Like there's too many people on the council that are already, looking to utilize the technology. They're just waiting for regulations here in the US. So super bullish on both those. I don't see them as competitors to XRP. XRP is for high value back-end payments for institutions and enterprises. It's back into the stock market, FX market, commodities, derivatives, probably even SWIFT for international payments. It could be, the domestic payments settle through Hyperledger and the Internet of Value that way. So we'll see. I think it's going to be low value payments, less than 10,000 that go through XLM, and anything more than 10,000 will likely go through XRP. That's my guess, my 2 cents. We'll see how it shakes out. We have Actions Speak says, is it really possible for XRP to reach 3 to 4 digits per coin? How far are we realistically away from something like that? It could happen anytime. If there was a liquidity crisis and a supply shock for XRP, they can drive prices to that. Michael Barr sits at the head of the Federal Reserve. He came from Ripple. And then you have Robbie Mitchnick. And this one's probably actually even more interesting than Michael Barr. Robbie Mitchnick created a calculator that shows that XRP should operate around $10,000 per token. And he is currently the head of digital assets at BlackRock. So if the guy that moved to the head of digital assets at BlackRock created the calculator that shows XRP should operate around $10,000 a piece, I'm going to believe that guy. He got that position. They wouldn't move him there if that's not legitimate. And there's a ton of other reasons. I go through the domino theory. You have transaction volume for SWIFT is 5 trillion a day. If you had 5 billion XRP that was settling that, you're looking at $100 XRP just for that application. Actually, it'd be $1,000 XRP for that spot. So it'd have to be, if you had 50 billion XRP and it's settling 5 trillion a day, we're at $100 again. XRP can be used up to 10 times a day to settle transactions. So, just take that as you will. But there's a ton of different circumstances in which the token could get to those prices if it were used at scale. And I do think that they will launch the ETFs and drive liquidity into it. Once they've driven liquidity into it, they'll start moving transactions over the network and protocol, and that's what will hold price stability and set a price floor for XRP over the long term. Again, just one guy's theory. We'll see if what happens. And thank you for the super chat. We have Honest Aim. Man, you're always so nice. Thank you so much for the super chat every week, man. He says, thank you for all you do for us in the Mastermind. Looking forward to seeing you at Kevin's event in Arkansas on Sunday. Thanks for setting up all the events to meet the other members in the Mastermind. Blessings. Yeah, it's really cool. There's been a ton of other groups in the XRP community. It's been a very rare deal that they've actually set up frequent in real life events. We've done one every single quarter for the most part since we started the Mastermind, sometimes more than one a quarter. And so, we'll continue to do that. I think it's very valuable to meet people in person, shake their hand, look them in an eye, look them in the eye, and develop a relationship with them. You just can't replace that. People get on with me and they have a call and they're like, I feel like I know you. And I felt that way. Like I met Brad Kimes and DAI and all these guys that we know, that are other YouTubers, BCB. You hear them talk all the time, right? And so you watch them on a frequent basis and you feel like you know these people because you interact with them so much. But there's really nothing that beats meeting somebody in person for the first time or continually and developing a relationship with them in that capacity. So we'll continue to offer those events, especially on the other side of price appreciation. We'll probably do more fun stuff, mile high masterminds and private jets. We'll rent yachts. We'll go cool places and put parties on that'll be exclusive for members there in the group. And again, on the other side of price appreciation, we're locking it down for 30 days. If you're not in there, you're going to be vetted pretty hard, and we're going to be very protective of the group. So if you want to get in now, it is time, I think. I don't know how much longer you got until $10 XRP. The code again for the free month to try it out and get in there is Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar. About 1,300 people in the group at this point, which is just, feel so blessed and grateful for all the fantastic people that we have there and the culture that's been built. When we started this 2 years ago, I thought, maybe a couple hundred people tag along, but yeah, it's grown exponentially, and we're so excited to be able to provide value at scale for people and continue to do things there in the group that are going to drive financial education, business resources, relationships, investments on the other side of price appreciation. So thank you, Honest Aim, you and your wife. Excited to see you guys in Arkansas also. Over here on TikTok, just because I see him running and I miss him, he says, are you going to make an app for Beyond Broke? Did you download it already? Yes. Yeah, we have one coming out. It's currently being approved for Android and Apple, and hopefully here within the next couple weeks, that'll be live for everybody that is a member there at the Beyond Broke community. We will have an app on your phone that'll make it much easier to access and go over all of the business resources and the town halls and all the other cool stuff in the forums and exclusive videos that we do there for the group. So appreciate you. I wasn't going to announce that, but you guys get it here first. Thoughts on David Schwartz's X post today, rug pull on its way. Yeah, it was very interesting to have whatever he had on the TV with Gary, and he zoomed up from the rug. Like, David's a cryptographer, okay? If you wanted to let people know things without like explicitly saying them, you do stuff like that. I think David's good people. He did tell people if they had life-changing money at the top in 2021 to go ahead and take some profit. And then we went down from there, obviously, and it's been another 3 years since then. So kudos to him. He called the top on that. And he did try to help people. So anytime he does post or say something, at this point, I listen. Let's see here. We've got a couple more super chats over here on YouTube that I'm going to run down. Do you provide the operating agreement or the documents needed to notarize your assets into the LLC? Sorry if you stated this already. Yes. Yeah, it comes along with the purchase of the LLC. So for the $1,500, you get the EIN, which filed with the IRS. You get the articles of organization, which is filed with the state. You get the operating agreement, like you mentioned there, that's curated specifically for this. If you had an attorney draft it up, it would be $1,800 to $2,500. You get certificate of good standing, BOIR if you need it. We'll see if they end up passing that or not. And then we also do the SOP on exactly what order you need to do things in order to move the assets in there. You can talk to our people. You can ask them as many questions as you need. They'll help handhold you through the whole process. And they also provide you with the video to set up a bank account there at Mercury, which I know a lot of people have issues with when they're dealing with crypto. So I try to provide as much value as I possibly can for a very fair price. I always want people to feel like they're getting more than they're paying for in every exchange and what we put together for Digital Wealth Partners and Digital Family Office and all of the other solutions that we're building. I always want people to feel like they got more than they paid for. So hopefully that answers your question, and we would love to work with you in that capacity. If it's something you are interested in, you just go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and put in LLC formation, and it will pull it up there for you. We have Daniel Doolittle. He says, when I hit $1 million value in Anchorage account, do I get a letter from DWP stating I'm a accredited investor and can start earning yield? Yes, you sure will, Daniel. I don't think we're very far off from that. I think that price appreciation is imminent as things kind of transpire here, and we do get a rotation for Bitcoin into the altcoins, and all of the other, macroeconomic global events that we've been discussing are super bullish for XRP. If you're holding it there and with Digital Wealth Partners, and we do, by the end of the month here, we will have a way for people to earn returns on their XRP if they're working with us. He says FG says thoughts on converting Bitcoin holdings to XRP. I think it's a really favorable spot in the cycle. So if you look at the chart, it would have been better, a couple months ago before we've seen the run up on XRP, but there's still a long way to run if the chart repeats. I know I have good friends that have arbitraged Bitcoin to XRP the whole time, and they have stacked a huge bag going back and forth between the two at tops and bottoms on that chart. So if you want to go look at that, it's just going to be XRP/BTC. You can look at it on TradingView. I can't give you financial advice. I don't hold Bitcoin. I only hold XRP. Again, I'm not a maxi. I'm here for ROI. I missed the ROI on Bitcoin. I wish I had been here sooner. I'm a little bit jelly of all the Bitcoin people. Happy for them, honestly, that they did get over 100,000. I didn't think it was going to get this high, and I'm happy to be wrong because we do have a lot of clients that hold a pretty significant allocation to Bitcoin. So at this point in the cycle, I think it makes a lot of sense based on the chart. But again, can't give you financial advice, and wish you the best on your trades. Let's see here. James Hall, how are you, sir? He says, Axelr solved the interoperability problem. They are actively doing it. It's pretty cool. In what could this help price appreciation for XRP? Could you explain more about Axelr and how far/wide the solution spreads? So it's built, again, we met with them today, which was pretty cool to kind of hear from the horse's mouth. We may have, somebody from their team on the show as well, just to discuss Axelr, their plans over the next year, what they currently have in place, and the actual technical solutions that they are providing as far as the infrastructure for multi-chain and multi-chain interoperability. But they have a ton of chains that are already interoperable through Axelr. It's not just JP Morgan Onyx. It is Optimism, Arbitrage, anything that's EVM. They got a ton of them already on there. They're looking to integrate Solana. They have XRPL on the side chain there. And they're just continuing to aggregate chains using their Cosmos backing, right? So that's kind of the shtick for Cosmos, is it allows for interoperability. They are a derivative of that. They are interoperable with Provenance as well, which is where Figure issues their assets. Anyway, it was super cool to have a conversation and get to see all the stuff that they're working on, and super bullish on that. And it will allow, JP Morgan is the main piece of that, because they did decide to go away from the XRPL and they didn't integrate with Corda, and they built their own thing using an EVM chain. You need some way for that to be interoperable with the XRPL for them to be able to participate in the new financial system. And I think Axelr provides a really good avenue for that, because, again, they are one of the largest banks in the world, and if they don't have the ability to participate, they're going to hold things back. And I think that might have been what's going on with the SEC case, because that wasn't built out 4 years ago. Wow, this is a very interesting name here. They say, college dropout, door-to-door salesman. I like to finish my education once I'm wealthy, and degrees you recommend for someone to help manage wealth. I went to school for finance, and honestly, there's not a whole lot that I learned at school that I use today. Business law was good. I went to school for general business and then pivoted to finance at the end. I don't think traditional education gives you a lot of the information that you're going to need to actually manage wealth effectively. I think that you could get a better education on YouTube from people like George Gammon and the like, people that are macroeconomists. Michael Gade is another good one. David Hunter, Bray Dalio. There's there's a lot of people that you can read their autobiographies. You look at Warren Buffett. I mean, our CIO, Matt Schneider, wrote this book. It is Warren Buffett in a Web3 world. It's a really snackable way. He took all of the investment letters from Warren and then applied them to crypto. If you wanted to go back to school for whatever reason and get a degree or your MBA in finance, it would be helpful, but it's really not going to teach you the intricacies of what the wealthy really use. There's a couple different channels on YouTube. We've got like 20 of them that I list in the Mastermind there that are things that I watch on a regular basis. Alux is really good. Old Money Luxury is another channel that's really good. You can just see how people move when they have money and the different, entities and tools that they use or resources to be able to mitigate taxes, set things up and fund and structure things. Because that's a lot of what it is once you have money. It's mitigating risk and structuring things the right way to mitigate taxes and continuing to invest in things that have secure, sustainable returns over the long term. With still a small allocation of it to asymmetric bets that could pop and continue to grow wealth quickly, but the majority of it you wanted in things that are going to have real ROI, but just enough that you're going to continue to maintain your wealth over the long term. So if you're getting 8 to 15% a year on your money in the current environment, you're doing really good. So anyway, I wish I had a better answer for you on the degrees. I think that education is going to change substantially with AI over the next decade. And I'm hopeful. If you guys haven't ever seen Ad Astra, I would encourage you all to go look at that. It's a school and a program that Elon developed for his kids out there in California. If you do have children and they are over the age of 9, they can apply to be a part of that program. And they go to like an online session every Thursday each week where they pair them. So they take an aptitude test. They look at their skill set. I think they take a personality test too. And they analyze those things and they match your children with people that have strengths that are opposite of theirs and weaknesses that are opposite of theirs. And they're in a group of like 4, and they'll give them a problem. And they'll say, you can use all the tools and resources at your disposal, the internet, whatever it is. And you just have to solve the problem, put together a solution. And that's really how the real world works. It's not about memorizing this and then regurgitating it on a test. I think that almost handicaps most people. There's a lot of people straight out of school that we've worked with in the past, and the people that I've known that they don't have critical thinking skills because that's all they've ever had to do. So I think that would really foster the way that they've set Ad Astra up, fosters critical thinking, and it lets people know that it's okay to fail and that there's not always just one right answer. There's lots of ways that you can get stuff done. And you can learn from other people and work with other people to be able to accomplish those things. So I know that was way more I rambled on there than what you asked, but just cool things that I think about on a regular basis and figured I'd share while I was on the topic. Appreciate Kevin and Cindy here for all the memberships. Juan, hey brother, he says, sup, what's up, man? Thanks for the weekly hopium. Can you elaborate on how Anchorage safeguards the XRP investments with the looming price appreciation? It's top of mind for those of us looking to set up custody with DWP. Absolutely. So they use HSMs, which are hardware security modules. They hold those in level 4 facilities. So there's like armed guards and like barbed wire and like infrastructure and firewalls and all kinds of stuff to prevent any type of hacks or people getting into the facility to be able to deal with anything or mess stuff up. And only one shard of your keys will be held there in an HSM in any one location globally. So they shard it after it's cryptographically, sealed. They shard those and then send them to all the HSMs globally. And then it's a multi-sig process to bring them back together. Be able to execute a transaction, and they never actually fully come back together. It's actually really interesting the way that they put this together so that it is even less hackable by a quantum computer. I can't say it's quantum proof, but quantum resistant for sure. and that's on the back end of Anchorage. Their UI and what we're working on with on-ramp, which is securitized for advisors, and some of the other stuff we're building, not quite as sexy as what we had at standard custody, but we're working on those things. And the back end is super, super secure. It's also insured. So Marsh is the insurer. The accounts there are insured up to 100 million, and that's reinsured by Lloyd's of London. So they wouldn't be insuring that if the security and the protocol that was holding those assets wasn't top shelf. So anyway, hopefully that explains to you, kind of the infrastructure on the back end, what that looks like, and why we chose them to partner with in that capacity to provide the service that we have. So thank you for the super chat, and look forward to seeing you in the near future, brother. Let's see here. We got Jay. He says, do you provide the operating agreement? Sorry, I think I already went over this, but the answer is yes. Yes, we sure do for the LLC. Scrolling on down here, we've got, here's one. Nope, I keep going back to the same one. It keeps pulling me back up here. We got, appreciate you, Angus. He says, cheers, smash the like button. Appreciate you on the super chat, brother. We've got, this individual says, what do you think the next 90 days look like for XRP? I think they look like straight line up. At least that's what I'm hoping for. If you look at the chart on the yearly, if you look at it on the monthly, if you look at it on the daily, there's just a lot of things to point to a breakout to the upside and a significant move higher from the current position. I think the pullback today was an opportunity for people. Not financial advice. Again, take everything I say with a grain of salt. It's for entertainment, educational purposes only. But buying, I'm buying. Please write code in chat in what normal price is. Not sure. Oh, for the LLC, is that what you're saying? So the normal price is maybe Living Legacy or somebody else can do that for us here. Appreciate them for all that they do there in the chat and the moderators over there in the group. It is $3,000 for the LLC. Normally, it's only $1,500 for everything that I listed off earlier. If you use the code 50 off OFFDAG, like Digital Ascension Group LLC. So 50 off DAG LLC gets you $1,500 for your LLC, puts you in position, gives you the most flexibility and benefit on the other side of price appreciation for your digital assets. Gives you anonymity. That's one of the things I haven't really talked about for the LLCs. So even if taxes go out the window, you're going to want to remain private if you have this much money. You're on a public ledger with your wallet address, and if for whatever reason they do make you list an entity, which you already see if you look at, XRP scan, they've got the exchanges listed up there. Other wallets say Elon or whoever else. You're going to want to remain anonymous on this stuff, and having an LLC in place that's filed in Wyoming is a really fantastic way to do that. They provide attorney-client privilege there. When we file it for you, our attorney's name is what's going to be listed on there. The registered agent's address is what's going to be listed on there. It's going to be much more difficult for people to figure out who's associated with an LLC than your individual name if you're holding your assets that way. So if you value privacy and anonymity, an LLC is kind of just like the first level of that. On the other side of it, you can set up the trust and have distribution trustees and management trustees and a nominee service and other stuff to be able to mitigate the ability for people to figure out who you are and how much assets you have. But in the short term, it provides a really good solution for that until you have funds to be able to pay for those things. So hopefully, again, that's 50 off OFFDAG LLC. Get you 50% off the normally $3,000 LLC that we help people file for their digital assets. Let's see. I have an operating agreement that you posted on YouTube a couple years ago before Mastermind. Is it still feasible? It works, but it's not ideal. So we have one specifically drafted for this application. I think back then we were passing people off to an attorney to get things drafted. Michael up there in New York. And he was doing a good job, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't doing it specific for digital assets, and so we took it upon ourselves to put together something that is specific for this application. And again, we would love to help you. If you do want just the operating agreement, just shoot us an email. It's info@digitalfamilyoffice.io. Appreciate the young lady over here on TikTok for putting the code there in the chat. Thank you. Let's see here. Lots of cool stuff coming for the Mastermind. Again, run private deals there in the group for private equity. Got some pretty cool ones in the shoot here. Excited to get those across the line in the next week and in the coming months for some other equity positions. If that's interesting to you, again, you can go check it out. Fire Marshal Bill, appreciate you on the code here. You can go check out the Mastermind for 1 month for free. It's mastermind.beyondbroke.com. The code's right there. Beyond Broke, the number 1, MO for Mary Oscar, gets you a free month in Social or Carbon One if you want to check it out. It does get you access to the private investments and the events and all the other resources we have there in the Discord and on the website. Martin says, my tax guy says you can't do an LLC in another state. It sounds like you need an estate planner, Martin. Your CPA is incorrect. You can use a registered agent. That's why those people are in business. They will allow you to use their address to set up the LLC in another state. And not to be mean, because when I first started setting up an LLC and doing business when I was in my early 20s, I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, I have to live in the state. How can I set it up somewhere else? There's ways to do it, especially if you have money. And again, it's not that expensive. We just roll it into the price that we provide people. There is an annual fee for a registered agent, just like anything else. If somebody's providing a service for you, they do want to be compensated. But yeah, you can definitely do it. You can, no matter what state you reside in, you can set up an LLC in Wyoming or another state using a registered agent. Let's see here. Uh-oh, your super was skipped. All right, incognito. I'm gonna go back and find it for you. Appreciate you letting me know. I'll make sure that I get it answered. I hate when I miss these. If people are gonna pay from Nitty, thank you for the super chat, Nitty, for their question to be answered, I will figure out what it is and go back and answer it. So again, I apologize. Here he is. He says, so the XRPL has a DEX built in. A DEX is a decentralized exchange for people that don't know what that is. How does the Forex market and futures market fare if the XRPL goes after all arbitrage first? So it's a good question. There will be AMMs for the different currency pairs that are issued on the XRPL. And these are open decentralized markets that aggregate all of the pricing across, global Forex and allow people to arbitrage that. But the people that provide liquidity to those pools will actually be the winner because people will have to bid for the opportunity to arbitrage that market for 24 hours on the spread. And they get to trade for 24 hours with no fees. So they're going to be willing to bid up to what David Schwartz told me was 90 to 98% of what they think they can make in that 24 hours in LP tokens. They give it back into the pool and burnt. And so the people that are still holding LP tokens in the pool that provided liquidity to those AMMs will actually make most of the money, and it recaptures all of that value. So I think that it's likely not going to be the DEX. The DEX is used when settling between transactions, but if there's actual market making being done, I think it'll be through the AMMs for futures and for the Forex market. I think that's where the pairs will sit, and they'll just be issued assets on the XRPL. The people pay, bid to arbitrage those markets, and they'll still be there. I do think that there's going to be fixed exchange rates for certain things on the other side of price appreciation. I think that a lot of people will back their currency with gold or oil or some other commodity in order to stabilize their currency and have sovereign, good solid money for their country. There might be data-backed tokens or other things as well, but that's there still may be some trading there. But but I think a lot of the arbitrage and the other stuff that's gone on in the Forex market with not fixed interest or not fixed rates between, floating exchange rates is what I'm looking for. I think they'll be pegged. I think they'll be fixed on the other side of this, and Forex trading will be, I don't want to say a thing of the past. There may still be some, but I don't think it'll be at the scale that it is today. So thank you for bringing that up, and it was a very good question. I'm sorry I missed your super chat earlier on. For what LLC? Let's see here. Hunter says, what keeps XRP from hitting 3 to 4 digits by Q4? Only if these catalysts don't happen, right? So if there's not a supply shock, if there's not a liquidity crisis, if the reverse carry trade doesn't unwind, if there's not a black swan, if there's not a huge move down in the stock market, if Tether doesn't go bust, if Bitcoin remains the top dog, like there's a lot of things that are current constraints that keep XRP where it's at. But as soon as one of those tips, you're going to see all of them fall over. And they have all been set up that way so that this escalates in a manner to levels that people just aren't going to be expecting for XRP. And then again, once it's utilized to settle certain payments at scale, you're going to have a price floor. It's just going to sit there. And people aren't going to understand that. There's going to be a lot of people that are frustrated that market dynamics shift completely on the other side of implementation and utility for some of these assets. And the constraints that we've known for the first 15 years that Bitcoin's been around will be swept away with regulation, ETFs, and use of these networks. And that's kind of sad. This has been pretty cool to be a part of a market that's this volatile and nascent and unregulated and like the wild, wild west. It's kind of exhilarating. But all good things must come to an end. And I think we're going to go through a transformation here in 2025 where market dynamics completely shift. And, again, to your point, I think 3 or 4 digits for XRP by the end of this year is highly likely with all the catalysts that we have in place. We are about an hour and 20 minutes in here. We're going to hang out for another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll wrap it up this evening. Bobby says he got a decent wallet. Love it. Thanks for the heads up. Awesome, brother. I'm glad to hear that. For those that can't work with us in institutional custody, I would go check out Decent. They have a biometric. You can add a 25th password. I think we have a link in the bio. Complete transparency. We are an affiliate. They're something I've used in the past. I really like them over Ledger, Trezor, Tangem, Engrave, LEPAL, whatever old wallet you've thought of. I've tried them all. I like Decent the most out of all of them. Has the best UI. It has the most breadth of assets across all of them. The biometric and the 25th password really just put it over the top for me. So if you are on the fence, you want to move your assets off of an exchange, I think a Decent is the best option to do that. And again, that's why we partnered with them. Jeremiah, he says, are we still less bullish but with a positive outlook on capped optimism for XDC? I've never really been like less bullish on XDC. I do think that it'll still be used in trade finance. I do think that $1 to $5 XDC is a very real possibility this cycle, especially if it's used at scale. My only concern and the headwind for XDC is it's not a US-based token. So if Trump does implement no capital gains tax on American-made, they're not going to fall in that category. And I think that's going to be a headwind for them along with Bitcoin and potentially Ethereum, now that Vitalik is based, over there in wherever he is. So anyway, that's the only thing that I really see as kind of a headwind for them. I think that their partnership with R3 is awesome. I think that TradeFi and Andre Casterman over there is awesome. I think that Quincy's awesome. I think their foundation's awesome. I think anything that is a contract that has value will likely be put on that network. And I think they actually picked a use case and have really drilled down on that, and it will be used and adopted for that, and the token will become used and valuable in that application. We're working on things right now to be able to provide yield on XDC in the Mastermind. We haven't, we're actively looking at opportunities to do this, but basically syndicating nodes to allow people to participate and earn income on their XDC. So it takes 10 million to set up a node. Most people don't have enough for that, but you might have 150 or 300,000 XDC, and if you want to earn yield on that, we are putting together a solution for it. So again, you're going to have to be a part of the Mastermind to be able to participate in that, but would love to have that conversation if it's something you're interested in. And again, bullish on XDC, just not as bullish as some of the other tokens. Jay, appreciate you on the dollar here, brother. Didn't ask a question, but it is appreciated. Incognito, he said, I see Forex market going away with atomic settlement for the XRPL. So you kind of agree with me. This will drive the futures market to a minimum. Stocks will be a price with very little change. Yeah, so you don't think there'll be as much volatility in stocks? That's interesting. I think there'll still be volatility there. I think people will still trade those, but I do see, the market makers and, fixed exchange rates really taking away a lot of the Forex market that people are used to arbitraging and trading. Oh, here he is. He's got one here. Sorry, brother. He says, how do you decide on an LLC name geared toward digital assets? You don't. It's in my SOP that we'll give to you. Will banks not approve you for a business account if the digital assets is in the name? I would go away from that. We're at 589 on YouTube again. What? So I like things that are meaningful for you, but very inconspicuous to other people. So I would tell you a phrase that my dad used to say, but then you would know the name of one of my LLCs that's anonymous. So stuff like that. Something that means something to you, or you could even abbreviate it, and it's going to look obscure to somebody else, but it'll mean something to you, right? That's what I encourage people to do, is use something from your life, an experience or a saying or a last name. My CCO asked me what street I grew up on the other day to name an LLC. And I was like, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, that's a good one. We should do that, because again, it's like nobody's going to know what it is, but you are, and it means something to you. So that's what I would encourage you to name the LLC. You don't want it to be affiliated with crypto. You don't want it to say anything with digital assets. It can be progressive and stuff, it could be digital something, but if you're like XRP to the moon LLC, people are going to know. Again, one of the points of the LLC is to remain private and have anonymity and, not draw attention. So I would, again, in the SOP, we talk about that, but just look for something that's meaningful for you, that you can abbreviate or make inconspicuous. And that's what I would name the LLC, or your trust, or anything else that you are going to have publicly visible for the rest of the world to see. Cool. I think we're through the super chats. I'm gonna grab a couple more over here on TikTok, and then we're gonna wrap it up tonight. We've got this one here, says, if we don't know who built Bitcoin, how do we know where they built it? It's not on the list of American-made cryptos. If you look on CoinMarketCap, Bitcoin is not on the list of American-made cryptos. So, it's possible that Bitcoin will have whatever capital gains attached to it that Trump decides. And that would be a shame for a lot of people that hold large amounts of Bitcoin. If Trump implemented no cap gains, so you think it could start next year or 2025? I think it'll be this year. I think he's going to sign some type of executive order that American-based cryptos don't have capital gains on them, and that'll drive a ton of people that have moved offshore back here to the U.S., and we would be the leader. Again, it would foster a lot of innovation and drive people back to the U.S. to be able to issue assets and work on protocols and really help us out in that aspect. We would no longer be behind the rest of the world if they were to do that. Is there going to be another dip soon? When Tether goes, Tether's going to go, okay? The reverse carry trade is going to unwind. There is likely going to be downside in the market when those things happen. I don't know if you're going to be able to buy. I don't know how liquid exchanges will be. I think there's going to be a liquidity crisis, and that's going to be their excuse to roll out all this technology that's sitting in the background, waiting for the opportunity. So, I think dollar cost averaging is always a pretty safe bet in comparison to trying to time the market. Could there be another dip? Sure. Could there not? Sure. XRP and these other assets may be going up while Tether's coming down and Bitcoin's coming down. I don't know. I wish I had a crystal ball. I'd be a lot wealthier than I am if I had a crystal ball. So, I think today was an opportunity, like I said. We got the Super Bowl, meme coin, Chiefs versus the Eagles here in the chat. Super Bowl meme coin. I guess for when the lawsuit will be officially dropped. As soon as the SEC chair gets in, and is really implemented, there was a brief that's supposed to be filed in April for the appeal. I think it'll be dropped before April. I think it'll be in Q1 here in 2025. I think that they need that to happen in order to approve the ETF, and I think that'll be very strategic when it happens. Could have been this weekend. Could have settled this weekend. Brad Garlinghouse put out a real cheeky tweet about a very quiet, boring weekend, and asked what exciting activities were going on. So we'll see, where things are at. Stuffed Animal says, not being in Wyoming, will I get taxed in my state too with the LLC? So it depends on what state you're in, but you do have to set up some things, and we do file those for Californians and a few other people when they set up. It's like a reciprocity deal. As long as the money stays in the LLC, the answer is no. If you move the money out of the LLC into your personal name, the answer is yes. So there's no state tax there in Wyoming. So as long as the money is spent out of that account and sat in a bank account associated with the LLC and not distributed to you, then you can kind of finagle your way around that. You're going to get pass-through taxation if you file as an S corp. So work with your CPA to be able to mitigate those taxes is the way I would put it. Hey, Jake, what options do Canadians have to set up an LLC? Do you work with Canadians? We sure do. If you want to reach out to info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, we'd love to have a conversation with you. We'll likely refer you to our partner up there. His name is Aaron Grinhaus. You can check him out at Grinhaus Law. He sits on the board for digital assets up there in Canada, digital asset professionals. He knows other CPAs, accountants, wealth managers, a lot of other people up there in Canada that work with digital assets, and he is one of the best estate planners in Canada for digital assets in particular. And I would just have a conversation with him. You might want to, set up something there domestic in Canada, or maybe here in the US, or maybe even down in BVI or the Caymans, depending on what your goals are over the long term. Do you think David Schwartz tweet was a sign of a rug pull? Everybody got the same message, so probably. If the SEC drops the case and the ETFs are approved, you can bet something's going to happen. They're going to throw out the kitchen sink at Ripple and XRP to keep it from, taking over Bitcoin and ETH. But I don't think it's going to work. I think that they're out of options at this point. So with that, we are at the hour and a half. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me tonight. Again, those codes one more time for people that are interested. If you want to join the mastermind, it is Beyond Broke, the number 1 MO. Get you a free month in the Beyond Broke Mastermind at beyondbroke.com. And if you are looking to set up your LLC and make sure that you're in position previous to price appreciation to make sure you make the most of your digital assets this cycle, I would encourage you to go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and use the code 50OFF-DAG LLC. That's 50OFF-DAG LLC, all capitalized, gets you 50% off the LLC there. That's only $3,000. It's only $1,500. You get the EIN, articles of organization, the operating agreement, which is the most costly piece, filing of the BOIR, certificate of good standing, video on how to set up the bank account, and the full SOP on all the specifics about naming your LLC, best practices, and how to move your assets in there before price appreciation to make sure that you're protected and have the most flexibility on the other side of it to be able to mitigate taxes with the full breadth of the tax code here in the U.S. With that, I hope you all have a wonderful night. We will be back Wednesday for another AMA. I'll be flying back that afternoon. I'm headed to Salt Lake early tomorrow morning to meet with the client. and then back Wednesday. So we'll see you guys Wednesday night. Until then, love you mucho, and we'll see y'all on the next one.